Imagine the United States government's top cybersecurity agency, like the absolute best of the best.
Right, the people tasked with protecting the nation from state-sponsored hackers.
Exactly. Safeguarding the power grid, keeping critical infrastructure online. Now imagine they took the master passwords to their digital infrastructure and just left them on a public website.
Yeah, in a folder literally labeled private.
Literally labeled private. I mean, you would think it was a bad script for a late-night spy movie, but it actually happened.
It's the ultimate reality check because we spend so much time analyzing these complex, multi-layered cyber warfare campaigns.
Right.
And sometimes the biggest threat is just a misplaced file folder.
Yeah, exactly. And that tension, right, between building these incredibly complex digital fortresses and simply leaving the keys under the proverbial mat, that is what we're unpacking today.
It's going to be a fascinating discussion.
Welcome to Calm Coding, your weekly cybersecurity podcast covering the latest news and stories. And, whether you are a seasoned tech professional dealing with complex enterprise networks, or you're just someone trying to keep your personal data safe from the endless barrage of threats out there, navigating the modern digital landscape can feel, well, completely overwhelming.
Oh, it absolutely can. The ground is just always shifting beneath our feet, and the rules of the game, they basically change daily.
Which brings us to our mission for today's analysis. We are examining the shifting perimeter of digital security.
Right.
We're going to explore everything from proactive physical infrastructure upgrades that guarantee privacy by the laws of physics, all the way to those seemingly small human errors that lead to just catastrophic data breaches.
It's quite the spectrum.
It really is.
Yeah.
So let's start on the proactive side of the equation, because we usually spend our time doing postmortems on absolute disasters.
Very true.
So I want to look at how companies are trying to build infrastructure where data physically cannot be stolen in the first place.
A refreshing change of pace, honestly. So where are we starting?
Over the virtual private network space. IPVanish recently hit a pretty major milestone. They expanded their global network to 150 server locations across 112 countries.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, pushing their total past 300 to 400 servers worldwide. And while earlier in the year they were focusing on Asia, South America, and Africa, this new push is specifically targeting North America and Europe.
Interesting. Any specific cities?
Yeah, they're rolling out massive new capacity in places like Barcelona, Calgary, Detroit, and Salt Lake City. And the stated goal is to reduce peak hour congestion between 7 p.m. and midnight.
Ah, right. The digital rush hour.
Exactly.
Because when everyone logs on to stream movies or play competitive online games, the bandwidth demands just completely skyrocket.
Right. It's essentially like adding extra lanes to the highway right before the evening commute so your video call doesn't drop or, your game doesn't lag. But tell me if I'm being too cynical here.
I'll let you know.
I look at this landscape and I see NordVPN boasting about 211 locations and ExpressVPN maintaining around 189. Is this just an arms race of numbers?
How do you mean?
Like, are these companies just trying to boast about having the most pins on a map for their marketing materials?
Well, it's a fair question. I mean, the marketing element is definitely there, obviously. But what's fascinating here is that the real story isn't the geography.
Oh, it's not.
No, it's the hardware they're deploying. IPVanish just rolled out nearly 1,000 RAM-only servers across these locations.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, and they're backing them up with massive 40 gigabit per second network interfaces.
Okay, let's break down that RAM-only server thing. Because when I picture a server in a data center, I picture this giant metal rack filled with spinning hard drives holding terabytes of files.
Right, and that is exactly how traditional servers work. They use hard disk drives or solid-state drives to run their operating systems, store user configurations, write activity logs, all of that.
Yep.
But from a privacy standpoint, a hard drive is a massive liability.
Why is that?
It's like writing a diary in permanent ink. I mean, even if you lock that diary in a safe, if a government agency raids the data center and physically seizes the server, or, say, a rogue employee steals the hard drive, the data is still sitting right there. It can be recovered.
Oh, I see. So how does a RAM-only server actually solve that? I mean, how do you even run a computer without a hard drive?
So RAM, or random access memory, is volatile, meaning it requires a constant flow of electricity to hold on to any data.
Okay.
Think of it less like a diary written in pen and more like an Etch-a-Sketch.
When Etch-a-Sketch, I like that.
Yeah, a RAM-only server boots up from a highly secure, read-only image, It loads its entire operating system and all its active processes directly into this volatile memory.
Wait, so the moment someone unplugs the machine?
The whole screen shakes and wipes completely blank.
Right.
Exactly. The absolute second that server loses power, whether it's physically unplugged or even just rebooted for routine maintenance, every single piece of temporary data evaporates instantly.
That is wild.
There are no SATA cables connecting to a hard drive because there literally is no hard drive. You cannot leak what you do not physically possess.
That is incredibly elegant. You're basically solving a software privacy issue with a fundamental law of physics.
Precisely. And Selby Stanu, the general manager of consumer cybersecurity at IPVanish, he noted that this expansion is part of a much larger investment in the future.
Oh, really? What's the end goal?
Their ultimate goal is to have 100% of their network running on RAM-only servers by 2027.
That's huge.
It is. It brings them right in line with the absolute highest security standards in the industry. And since RAM is significantly faster than traditional storage drives, it pairs perfectly with those new 40 gigabit interfaces. You get the privacy guarantee, but you don't sacrifice any speed.
I love that approach. But we should pivot, because while a VPN company might be engineering solutions to avoid storing your data, the rest of the digital economy is, well, built on hoarding as much of your personal information as possible.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's the reality.
Right. It's easy to protect data when you actively refuse to keep it. But what happens when massive retail corporations hoard your data in the cloud and then someone just leaves the back door open?
We get a very stark reminder of why data hoarding is such a massive liability.
Exactly. And that leads us to the recent cyberattack on the retail giant 7-Eleven. This was confirmed via a formal filing with the Maine Attorney General's office.
Ah, yes.
Back on April 8th, 2026, 7-Eleven discovered a breach that exposed customer names, addresses, and a bunch of other highly sensitive elements.
Now, when you hear that a convenience store chain was breached, I think the immediate assumption is point-of-sale systems, right?
Oh, well, interesting.
You imagine someone buying a coffee and a donut, and a piece of malware on the actual cash register is quietly skimming their credit card number.
That is exactly what I thought. I figured, oh, they found some physical card skimmers attached to the payment terminals. But actually, no. Here's where it gets really interesting. This was not a hack of the local cash registers at all.
Really?
The attack vector was 7-Eleven's corporate Salesforce environment.
Oh, wow. Okay, that changes the scale of the disaster entirely, because Salesforce is a customer relationship management platform, a CRM.
Right, so let's explain what that actually means in practice. Because for the listener who maybe doesn't work in enterprise sales, how does an attack on a CRM lead to, I think it was 600,000 compromised records of personally identifiable information?
Right. Think of a CRM like the central nervous system of a modern corporation. It doesn't just hold a simple list of email addresses.
Right.
It integrates directly with a company's internal databases via APIs or application programming interfaces. So it holds loyalty program data, granular marketing demographics, internal employee communications, and even customer support tickets.
Oh, man. So it's everything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If an attacker gains access to that Salesforce environment, they essentially have a backstage pass to the company's most valuable data reserves.
And the threat actors who grabbed that backstage pass were definitely not quiet about it. The ransomware group ShinyHunters actually claimed responsibility for this one.
Ah, ShinyHunters.
Yeah. They broke into the Salesforce environment and issued a direct ultimatum to 7-Eleven, demanding a ransom be paid in Bitcoin by April 21st.
And what happens when a company refuses to pay a group like ShinyHunters?
They dropped the hammer. 7-Eleven did not pay, so ShinyHunters leaked a 9.4 gigabyte archive of the stolen files directly onto the dark web.
Oof, 9.4 gigabytes.
And a 9.4 gigabyte archive of pure text data. I mean, that is an unfathomable amount of personal information.
It really is. And, you know, if we connect this to the bigger picture, what stands out to me about these modern ransomware cartels is the psychological manipulation they use. Did they release a statement with the data dump?
They did. And the audacity is just staggering. They wrote, and I quote, "The company failed to reach an agreement with us despite our incredible patience, all the chances and offers we made. They don't care."
Incredible patience. I mean, it is classic extortionist framing.
Right.
They break into your house, hold your belongings hostage, and then play the victim. They try to frame the victimized corporation as the bad guy for not protecting their customers by paying the ransom.
It's wild. So 7-Eleven is currently dealing with the fallout. They brought in a third-party cybersecurity firm to investigate, send out notification letters, and they're offering affected customers 2 years of free identity theft protection.
Just standard practice, yeah.
But it really highlights the fragility of third-party cloud infrastructure. I mean, we expect a convenience store to sell snacks, not to run military-grade cybersecurity. So they outsource to a massive platform like Salesforce.
Makes sense.
But if just one administrative permission is configured incorrectly, it doesn't matter how secure Salesforce's underlying code is, right?
Precisely. Because the cloud isn't magic, it is literally just someone else's computer.
Right.
You can rent the most secure vault in the world, but if your IT administrator accidentally sets the access policy to public, anyone can just walk right in.
Which perfectly sets up our next topic.
Yeah.
Because it's easy to forgive a retail chain for fumbling cloud permissions, right?
Sure.
But that excuse entirely evaporates when the victim is the literal government agency tasked with protecting the nation's infrastructure.
Ah, the CISA story, yes. This one is genuinely hard to believe.
It is. So a security researcher named Guillaume Valadon was doing some routine scanning and made a shocking discovery. He found a public GitHub repository that was openly accessible on the internet since mid-November 2025.
Just sitting there.
Just sitting there. And it wasn't managed directly by CISA employees, but by a government contractor called Nightwing.
Okay.
And the name of this public repository, Private CISA.
The irony of naming a public folder private is almost too on the nose.
I know.
Let's contextualize this for a second. GitHub is a web-based platform where developers store, share, and collaborate on software code.
Right.
You can create private repositories, which require strict authentication and are meant only for your internal team. Or you can create public repositories, which are meant for open source projects where literally anyone in the world can view and download the code.
So someone at this contractor, Nightwing, essentially just checked the wrong box. They created a repository for highly sensitive government code and just set it to public.
Yes. This raises an important question about vetting third-party contractors, really. It's like the chief security officer of a major bank deciding to leave the master combinations to the vaults pinned to a bulletin board in the town square.
Right.
And simply putting a sticky note on top that says, "Please don't read." When you outsource your development to third-party contractors, you are completely inheriting their security practices, or their lack thereof.
Okay, but a public GitHub repo is meant for open source code. Even if they accidentally made the code public, please tell me they didn't actually hard code live administrative credentials into it. Like, what did Valadon actually find sitting out in the open?
Well, it reads like a nation-state hacker's ultimate wish list, unfortunately. Valadon found administrative credentials for 3 AWS GovCloud accounts.
Wait, hold on. GovCloud. Explain what makes that different from standard Amazon Web Services.
AWS GovCloud is an isolated, highly restricted region of Amazon's cloud infrastructure, designed specifically to host sensitive data and regulated workloads for the U.S. government.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's supposed to be one of the most secure cloud environments on the planet, and the admin keys to access it were just sitting in a public GitHub folder.
Unbelievable. What else is in there?
There were credentials for CISA's internal DevSecOps landing zone.
DevSecOps. Okay, for the listener who isn't a cloud engineer, what does that actually mean in plain English?
DevSecOps stands for Development, Security, and Operations. The landing zone is essentially the secure, automated pipeline where developers build, test, and deploy new security software.
Okay.
It's the factory floor where CISA builds its defensive tools. The repository also contained internal Artifactory credentials.
What's an Artifactory?
An Artifactory is basically a highly secure digital pantry where developers store all the core software packages and components they use to build applications.
Oh, no.
Exactly. If you have access to the Artifactory, you could potentially poison the software supply chain by injecting malicious code into the very tools the government relies on.
So they exposed the government's cloud servers, the software factory floor, and the pantry where they keep the raw code ingredients.
It gets worse.
How?
There were SSH keys, which are cryptographic keys used to securely access remote servers without needing a password. There was a file literally named Important OS Tokens.
You're kidding.
I wish I was. And perhaps the most unbelievably blatant item was a file named AWS Workspace Firefox Passwords.csv.
A CSV file, like a basic unencrypted spreadsheet of passwords, just sitting on the public internet for months.
Yes. Valadon actually reached out to Krebs on Security because The operators of the repository just weren't responding to his messages.
not.
Right. And he explicitly stated that this leak detailed exactly how CISA builds and deploys software internally. He called it one of the most egregious government data leaks in recent history and noted it was the worst leak he's witnessed in his entire career.
Wow. So what was CISA's response once Krebs on Security finally got their attention and the repository was locked down?
A CISA spokesperson confirmed they were looking into it, and they issued a statement saying, currently, there is no indication that any sensitive data was compromised as a result of this incident. And they pledged that additional safeguards are being implemented.
Okay, I have to push back on that.
Mm.
They left AWS admin keys and internal infrastructure passwords completely open to the public internet for months, and they claim there's no indication anything was compromised.
Mm.
I mean, is that actually believable, or is that just pure PR damage control?
It's highly suspect, because when credentials sit on a public GitHub repo, they are almost immediately scraped by automated bots that threat actors run specifically to hunt for this kind of mistake.
Right.
So even if CISA doesn't see evidence of a massive data exfiltration today, those keys could have been quietly collected and sold to a nation-state intelligence service who will just hold on to them until they need them. The sheer scale of the risk is astronomical.
It perfectly illustrates how the weakest link in cybersecurity is rarely a sophisticated zero-day exploit.
Yeah.
It's just a tired developer checking the wrong permission box on a Friday afternoon.
Exactly. A completely passive human error.
But, not all human-centric breaches are passive. Sometimes attackers actively manipulate, and in this case, the attackers are pretending to be the popular Chinese messaging app WeChat and the visual collaboration platform Miro.
Ah, okay.
People go looking to download these apps, end up on the fake type of squatted site, and download the Reaper malware instead. But let's talk about the victim profile here. So what does this all mean for Mac users? Historically, they've possessed this prevailing wisdom, this kind of false sense of immunity, that Macs simply don't get viruses the way Windows machines do.
And that false sense of security is exactly what these attackers are preying on. macOS has become a highly lucrative target, and the tools attackers are using are incredibly professional now.
Yeah.
The Reaper variant is a perfect example of a sophisticated infection chain that relies entirely on deceiving the user.
So how does it deceive them? Because macOS has a lot of built-in guardrails, right? It usually warns you before installing unverified software.
It does, but Reaper uses the operating system's own security branding against the user. When you launch the downloaded script, the malware displays a highly convincing fake update message that references Apple's own built-in background security tool called XProtect Remediator.
Oh, that is devious. So the user thinks Apple is prompting them to update their actual security software, so they happily type in their admin password and authorize it.
Exactly. And once it infects the system, it needs to establish persistence. It wants to survive a system reboot and stay hidden in the background indefinitely.
Right. It doesn't want to just run once and disappear.
Right.
Yeah.
So to do this, it utilizes Mac-O property list files, or .plist files, which govern how background agents run. It creates files and folders designed to look exactly like genuine Google software update components.
Sneaky.
Very. It creates a fake Google update directory and registers a system agent named com.google.keystone.agent.plist.
That is brilliant in a very dark way, because almost every Mac user on the planet has Google Chrome or Google Drive installed. If you are a savvy user poking around your system files and you see a Google updater running in the background, you wouldn't give it a second thought.
No, not at all.
It blends right into the noise.
Precisely. And once it's comfortably hidden, Reaper goes to work. Now, it's important to note that Reaper is an infostealer, not ransomware. It doesn't lock your computer or demand a Bitcoin payment. It quietly vacuums up your digital life in the background.
What's it looking for specifically?
It targets browser credentials, cryptocurrency wallets like MetaMask and Phantom, and password managers. It specifically hunts for the background extensions linked to 1Password, Bitwarden, and LastPass.
Wait, so it's stealing the session cookies?
Exactly. By stealing session cookies, attackers can often bypass two-factor authentication entirely.
Because the session token tells the remote server that you've already authenticated successfully.
You got it. It also steals Telegram session data and scrapes sensitive documents right off your desktop.
It just hoovers up your entire digital identity while you think a Google update is running. Did Sentinel figure out who is actually operating this Reaper variant?
Well, they didn't make a formal attribution to a specific threat group, but they found a highly illuminating technical detail buried in the code.
Oh,
The malware actually checks the infected system's keyboard layout to see if it uses Russian input sources.
okay.
If it detects that the system is operating in the CIS, the Commonwealth of Independent States region, the malware immediately exits.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
It checks your keyboard language, and if you type in Russian, it just leaves you alone.
Yes. It has a geographic geofence built into it. It actively refuses to infect those machines. Furthermore, if a security researcher tries to bypass the malware's anti-analysis protections to study how it works in a lab, the malware triggers a fake website that displays a Russian access denied message. All of this heavily points to Russian-speaking operators trying to avoid local law enforcement.
Ah, I think I see the logic there. If you're a cyber criminal operating out of that region, and you intentionally avoid infecting computers in your own backyard, local law enforcement is much less likely to spend resources hunting you down.
Exactly.
You don't cause trouble at home, and the authorities turn a blind eye while you target victims in North America and Europe.
That is a very common tactic. But for the end user, the primary takeaway is incredibly clear. The days of thinking your Mac is inherently immune to malware are completely over. The attackers are well-funded, they're highly sophisticated, and they know exactly how to trick you into handing over the keys.
It's a sobering thought, and it really brings us full circle on today's analysis. Let's trace the thread of what we've uncovered today. We started by looking at how companies are trying to build structural physical defenses, like IPVanish, rolling out RAM-only servers to fundamentally guarantee privacy by utilizing the volatile nature of memory.
Right. Engineering a physical solution where data simply evaporates when the power is cut. A fascinating technological safeguard designed to eliminate the possibility of human error entirely.
Exactly. But then we explored the other side of the equation, where human error remains the absolute weakest link in the security chain. Whether it's a massive enterprise like 7-Eleven, fundamentally misunderstanding their cloud configurations and leaving APIs exposed in Salesforce.
Or government contractor like Nightwing leaving the literal keys to CISA's infrastructure sitting in a public GitHub repository.
Yeah. Or individual users falling for typo-squatted domains and fake Apple security updates to install the Reaper Infostealer on their Macs.
It all comes back to the human element.
It really does. So for you listening at home, this is a reminder to apply these lessons to your own digital footprint. Double-check those URLs carefully before you download anything. If you are a 7-Eleven customer, maybe take them up on that offer for credit monitoring and keep a close eye on your statements. And perhaps take a moment this weekend to reevaluate how much sensitive data tax documents, lists of passwords, crypto recovery phrases you leave sitting completely unencrypted on your own hard drive.
And as we wrap up, I want to leave everyone with a final thought to mull over.
Let's hear it.
We talked extensively about the brilliant security of RAM-only servers. If a server is seized or unplugged, all the data vanishes instantly. It's perfect for privacy. But as threat actors shift away from brute force hacking and increasingly rely on simply logging in with stolen credentials, like the session cookies stolen by Reaper or the AWS keys leaked by CISA, they look exactly like legitimate users.
Right, because they have the valid passwords, so
Yeah.
the system thinks it's just a normal login.
Exactly. So if RAM-only servers wipe everything the second power is lost, and threat actors are logging in as legitimate users, are we inadvertently creating a future where, when a massive breach does happen, the victims have absolutely zero forensic evidence left behind to figure out who actually did it?
Oh, wow.
By perfectly protecting our privacy, are we also perfectly covering the tracks of our attackers?
That is a fascinating dilemma. Solving one vulnerability might just create an entirely new blind spot for investigators. Well, thank you for joining us on this week's analysis here at Calm Coding. Stay safe, double-check your repository permissions, and we will see you next time.